I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatch's livestream number 73. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the submitted art portfolios that you have sent me, try to give you some helpful feedback on that, as well as answer any of the live questions that you have for me in the chat. We'll also be kicking off a new art challenge. I know people have been waiting around for that, and I really needed to hold off on it until I got into the new house, but as I'm here, it's time to start them back up. So we will just be going through a couple of announcements first before we get into the actual portfolio reviews. And if you have any questions for me live in the chat, make sure that you put @swatches at the beginning of your comment, so it will flag that in yellow for me. It's much easier for me to notice it there. But it looks like everything's going pretty good. I'm guessing that I have good audio. You guys usually let me know when I don't. We already have several people in. Michael, Kayla, David, good to see you guys. Justice, Kazuma, welcome. Appreciate you coming over and joining the stream. Alright, well, no drops frames. Looks like we have some good audio, so I'll go ahead and just push that menu out of the way. Alright, a couple of announcements. Like I said, now that I'm in the new house, I have the better connection, that I can actually do some streaming. Mentorship consultations are back open now, so if you want to schedule a 1-hour one-on-one consultation with me, a video chat, where we can go over whatever questions or topics that are relevant to you, where you are in your art journey, then you can do that out at art-mentor.com. Most of the time, people want to know about maybe their art education. Okay, I'm working on this. What do I need to work on now? I don't have money for university. What should I be focusing on? Where are my weaknesses? Another very popular thing to talk about is portfolio. Okay, I think I'm pretty good with my skills, but I need to put together a portfolio. What am I missing? If I can only do 3 more pieces, what should they be? And what would be best for these particular companies that I'm trying to get for? All right. Number 2, finished recording the materials course. So the ever existing and continually being made materials course. I have finished recording all of the base 20 lessons. And I'm sorry, it's a little dry in here. Throat's already drying out a little bit. So it'll be 20 lessons on painting a variety of different materials, going in depth on each one of them. The first 7 lessons are over basically the principles involved across all materials and understanding those, and we'll relate back to them later when we talk about the individual materials. I have the beginning ones lasting 15 to 20 minutes, and then the later ones are pushing about 30 minutes a piece. But I do have to go and edit the videos from about lesson 7 through 20. So it'll probably take off 2 or 3 minutes where I flub something that I'm saying and I had to redo it. So I'll edit that out and it'll bring it down a little bit. Those aren't for sale right now, but they will, be coming up. So if you're interested, then just keep your ears open. Of course, we'll be announcing that. I will probably have a pre-sale on that, and whoever picks it up on a pre-sale will get an additional extra lesson. Maybe they'll get some extra materials with that as well. All right, if you're not already part of the Swatches group, join us out on swatches.group. It is a Facebook group. It has over 4,000 members. Very active, very supportive. And there's a lot of feedback for those looking for some good, logical, helpful, creative, constructive criticism. Yeah. All right, more people coming in. Taco Game, Amat, Mike, Carmel, Michaela. Good to see everybody. And of course, we'll be announcing the new art challenge. And those e-tickets will be going on sale tomorrow. If this is new to you and you're not sure what I'm talking about, this is what's going on. I put together a brief, an outline for an art challenge. It is something to illustrate. I will give you the example. We'll look at that in just a minute. And what you will do is have 2 weeks. Well, I create the outline of what you're going to do. You can go out and buy the e-ticket from the store at swatchesart.com. It's $20. It'll be right around there. And that is feedback from me on your artwork. So we have 2 weeks to create your concept/sketch, and you'll submit it in, and we'll have a live stream where we'll go over everybody's artwork and give them feedback and answer any additional questions that you write into your submission. And then you have 2 more weeks to finish it. And then again, we'll have another live stream where we'll look over that and answer additional questions. It is kind of a halfway to doing a real project where you have to work on a deadline. You're working with essentially an art director. I'm kind of filling in as an art director and giving you those sorts of feedback, but also working as your art teacher, where I'm going to go a bit more in depth and try to educate you more than an art director would. So if you're interested in that, then you want to keep your eyes out for the post on the Swatches group tomorrow, where that will be coming up. Okay, and you guys are welcome to put any comments and questions in the chat, and I will work them in as I have time. Usually what I like to do is review a couple of images and then take a question from the chat if it's there, and then jump back and forth. So how are you guys doing? Everybody getting a little changed up with their schedule? I know a lot of people are like, oh man, the isolation, I'm having to stay home, and the world is so different. And I'm thinking, my day has hardly changed at all. Everything is basically going the same way with me. I'm feeling good. I'm staying healthy. I'm working on the house. All that jazz. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started with the challenge outline. This is a dual challenge, as we kind of moved into doing recently, because it gives people more options. Okay, let me move it down like that. Here we go. So this is just for us, all right? To be clear, I do not own the images that you create. They are all yours. You can do anything that you want with them. I'm just trying to give you a prompt, encourage you, give you a little feedback. So I don't own any of this that you create, just to be clear. We will, of course, be reviewing it on the stream, though. Image should be 3,000 pixels maximum when you submit it with the templates. Put it in JPEG, and you have 2 choices, either the Swap Shop or Last Stand. You can choose either Swap Shop or Last Stand Challenge. Both are full-color illustrations. With Swamp Shop, we are returning to our fictional fantasy game of Spireville. Now, we've done half a dozen past art challenges dealing with Spireville. And this one we're doing location. So create a full color concept for Boggin's Swap Shop. Depict the shop and Boggin, the turtle proprietor. If you're not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, which this is kind of based on that idea. Turtle is basically a humanoid turtle. He's not a ninja, though. This is a like a little shop owner. The shop blends well with the swampy environment. The environment itself, the swamp, is similar to Yoda's Dagobah, if you think from Star Wars. The really marshy, wet surface, the big trees, that sort of thing. And it has a wide arching roof that reaches low. So I'm kind of thinking of something that has like kind of a big curved roof, and it reaches real low in the sides. Even similar to like the opening of some of the Hobbit houses from Hobbit, but go crazy with it. Maybe it has like 3 tiers of roof lines, or maybe part of it's a rock sticking out, or part of it's a big mushroom, or anything on that. Just think about it, kind of an arching roof that goes low to the ground. The shop front is semi-open, with wares scattering out in front. So it's not necessarily like a full-on shop where he has like, picture windows with things sitting inside. It's more like he kind of has a, maybe even like a awning or flaps that he just lets up, and then the shop's inside, and at night, he just takes out the stand and kind of closes it back up. And he has different pots and collections, just whatever he gets off of the travelers and whatever he finds out in the swamp. So nothing too fancy, pretty practical stuff. Going up, the establishment is backwoods. It's not fancy. It's kind of a backwoods place, and it's simple, but we want it to be inviting. Maybe have some nice little bits of color, some inviting lanterns being hung around, maybe a string of lights, something like that. Keep the camera at eye level with enough light to make out details and a background. And the background should be a flat tone or a simple gradient. I will give you an example of what I'm looking for art-wise. We'll read through the rest of this and I'll show you what I mean. Last stand. Sorry, my throat is really... I've just been sitting here working. I haven't even been talking to anybody and didn't realize my throat was so dry. Last stand. Depict a desperate battle between a sci-fi hero and multiple serpent-like aliens in an alien environment. The details are open. A hero can be anything from a NASA astronaut to an android marine. It can be male, female, obviously like an android might not even have a gender. They can be all decked out like Iron Man or Master Chief, or it could just be some funny little, like retro astronaut with a ray gun. Whatever works for you. They can be fighting with simple or advanced weapons. Maybe they've been there a while and they've been stranded and they've had to, resort to using some spear to fight with and their spacesuits all torn up or, anything on that line. That could be cool too. I think Frank Frazetta battle scene with lots of energy and movement. Make sure we're right up in the battle. We want to feel the motion and energy going on here. This should be a fully rendered scene with characters and environment with a reasonable level of polish. Provided are two PSD templates. When you get the e-ticket, it will come with some Photoshop files with the templates of where your main image goes, then where your reference images go, and you do need to include your reference images. Okay, that is one of the things with doing the challenge. Also, if you're not going to have time to do the challenge, just don't get the ticket. Because somebody else who really is looking forward to the opportunity, give them the chance to do it. But if you want to go for it, absolutely go for it. This is all also open to both digital and traditional media and all levels of skill. Whether you're just starting out and you've just been drawing for 3 months, or whether you have even been picking up some professional projects and you just think it sounds like fun. We will go with wherever you are and give you feedback based on that, not based on who else is entering. Okay, so let's take a look at the images. Let me just see if that's about this. Okay, I can get to that in a little bit. So here are some of the images that I collected together that, computer, hang on. They kind of show what I'm thinking. So starting up here on the top. Oh, it's acting like I'm holding down a button, but I'm not touching anything. Okay. So this is the sort of thing that we're looking for with the Boggin shop. And that is, we want to see the shop itself, but we don't really need the background around it. What you can do is perhaps what they have here, which is a little supporting terrain. Maybe you show like just a tree kind of coming up, or maybe you show the little pathway that it's on and some of the ferns or whatever that's around it. But we don't need the whole scene. This is also a pretty good direction just as far as all the moss and stuff growing over top. This shop has been here a long time. He loves living in the swamp, and the moss and the vines are just kind of, growing up over the shop and around the shop. So also look for lots of places to do weathering and aging, and maybe some of it's stone, some of it's wood. Maybe it's an old boat that he turned upside down and he's living out of part of the hull. Have fun with it. Anything on that line. These are just another examples of different kinds of artwork kind of along that lines. It's a different style, but it's kind of interesting. Maybe that gives you some ideas of where you want to go. And this was sort of like, this guy did a series of, I think, 6 of them, or at least that he shared, that they used to be boats that were taken apart, and they made these buildings out of these boats. And this was just a fun one from the Etherington Brothers art tutorials. I think that's what it was, Etherington Brothers. Maybe it's like that too. Maybe those you get to it by going on a little boat and it's kind of built into the bank. And that's good too. Okay, over here, ideas for the battle. This is the sort of thing we're thinking about. Maybe you have your character up on some ledge and the serpent guys are coming up around him and he's trying to fight them off. Oh, he's being overwhelmed. Look at the poses. They're very action-oriented poses. Everybody's in the middle of a movement. Make sure that you're getting references at least for the more humanoid characters. Obviously, with the serpent thing, you will probably have to be making some guesses because you don't have one to use. But do look up images of dragon illustrations, look up photos of snakes and lizards, and get some basis off of those. These, if you want, these are Frank Frazetta, if you're not familiar with him, Frazetta. This is Jesper Essing. Hopefully I said that right. Jesper Esing. That'll get you close enough. You can probably Google it and find it. These both have good action. This one, that's not as much action, but you really get this sense of being encroached, like the battle's about to kick off. So that one's a good sign in there as well. I don't remember who did these two, apologies, but they were good as well. This one's, completely being overwhelmed, the hero in the middle. This one's also using the dynamic of diagonals in order to heighten the sense. Like everything is at an angle, nothing's plumb, everything's, in flux. This image has been cropped in order to fit my little box here, but that's a good indication. Maybe the serpent thing is really big. Maybe he's driving down into it with his spear and his spacesuit. So all good, all that stuff. These will be included with the e-tickets. And on that note, remember, all of this will be available. I'll make it available tomorrow. Out on the link of it will be available on the group page. So if you don't want to buy an e-ticket but you just want to do it on your own, then you can just go out there. You'll be able to download the files, you'll be able to download the outline, be able to download the template, and you can just do it as with part of the community. You just won't be able to submit it in for the review during the live streams. Okay, let me pause here and take a look at some of the questions and comments we got coming in. Kazuma says, Swatches, do you ever struggle to get professional work done on a bad drawing day? Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody has bad drawing days. I guess it's less about... Let me back up. Experience has told me that it's usually less about a bad drawing day, like somehow my ability just went down. That's not really what happens as much as I just have too many things on my mind, or I'm overloaded and my mind can't focus well. There's something else important going on that is not resolved, and that's generally where my work goes down. So I find that one of the ways that I manage is to go ahead and try to take care of whatever that thing is, because it is going to continue to be an issue. Now, sometimes that's possible and sometimes that is not possible. Sometimes it's maybe you're sick, and that's going to bring about a bad drawing day. Your brain is just foggy, you're tired, you've been up coughing or whatever. And there's only so much that you can do about that to mend that situation. But maybe you're just kind of stressed out by a pile of mail and bills that need to be taken care of. Okay, well, take 2 hours and just take care of that and free that up from your mind. It's almost like, clearing the cache in your computer to free up space. So that's one of the ways you do it. I also have learned that there is times to push through, and there are times to just take off and do something else. And you got to learn not to feel guilty. I mean, if it's something that you're habitually doing, if you're habitually procrastinating and taking off to do something else, then that's one thing. But the other thing is sometimes you just need time off. That's the way the brain works. The brain needs different stimuli, or maybe you need more sleep. Another way to do it to help manage is backing up, maybe backing up a step, looking at your earlier sketches, being reminded of that, and then getting more references. That's something else that if I find that I'm kind of hitting a wall and it's just not improving, usually it's because I'm trying to get too much out of too little. And I have found oftentimes that if I just go out and I spend an hour or two getting new good references, not just random references, but really specific references, or making the photo or whatever it is, then that can kind of get me out of the rut and help me to get more done. All right, let's move over to Justice has a question here. Swatches, would you be able to use other programs than Photoshop? I have been running on Procreate for a while and would like to get more familiar with digital painting Photoshop, but would be difficult. Would we be able to use... Oh, with the art challenge, yeah, you're welcome to use whatever program you want. Most people in the community, I think they use Photoshop, so I supply it in Photoshop files. The images are JPEG based, so you can open those in pretty much anybody. But yeah, you're absolutely feel free to do it in Procreate. If you can't use the template with the reference images, just try to throw together something similar to that. I'm mainly concerned that the entries are submitted with the reference images, because I want you to be using them, and less that you have to use that specific template. Okay, so yeah, absolutely feel free to do that if you are playing around with a different program. Okay, so I think that's it for that. If you guys have further questions on those topics, feel free to put them in there as we're going. But I need to look up the portfolio that we're going to first look at. Okay, so I've collected the portfolios over the last 2 months or so from the group, from those who submitted, and I just put them in a list, and I'm using a random number generator as a lottery system to just pick one, and I ran one just before the stream, so I will copy that, and we will jump over and look at that in a second, but I need to... I just need to bring it up on my window. Stick with me for just a second. Oh no, it's got to be in a different window because I still need to be able to see. I still need to be able to see the chat window. Okay, let's put him over there, and then we'll open that. Here we go. Make sure it's active link. Okay, cool. We do have another question. Oliver says, Swatches, do you have any tips for accuracy when drawing from reference, or any strategies to improve that? Are you talking about mainly like drawing accuracy, proportions, and that sort of thing? Or are you talking more about just overall accuracy? It doesn't look like the thing that I'm doing. There's all kinds of drawing practices in order to improve accuracy. You know what? You actually reminded me of something. Let me open... There's a file I have. Let me browse out and find it. And we will take a look at that. You get in front of a camera and you forget where you save some of your files. If you're new to the stream, you just know that I'm not trying to hold you out from seeing stuff, but I do have some files under NDA, which is why I don't show my screen when I'm going around, because I'm those images are not free to see yet. I am looking for... Okay, I have a Patreon that I sometimes do, and I have some exercises in the Patreon rewards that would go along with drawing accuracy. And I'm trying to remember which month it was that was in there. So if I can pull that up, I'll show it to you. And we can talk through some of those exercises. And that will give you some ideas. Okay, no, that's too far back. Okay, here it is. Yep. Move that out of the way now. I'll go ahead and jump through these exercises first, and then we will take a look at the portfolio. If I can get this on here, there we go. And I saw that the newest version of OS on the Mac, Catalina, updated to that, and apparently you can use your iPad Pro as a additional screen. But my iPad had a dead battery. Otherwise, I'd be throwing some of my stuff over on that screen, so I'm not having to juggle. Okay, where did OBS go? Okay, now I need to go back to screen webcam. Okay, there we go. Doing my little juggling act here. All right, thank you for your patience there. Okay, so this is a series of exercises that I made for patrons back, a year and a half ago or so. And so, a little freebie for you guys, I guess. Here we go. These are some just drawing exercises for general accuracy and improving your observation skills. These are super simple, but they're very effective. So these go on a variety of different things, just going from thin to wide. And it's just training your eye to notice small changes in trying to do that. So you're just copying those over. You can do that on that side. Do the same thing with rectangles, well, trapezoid. And these are good ones for just starting to think in 3D, rotating a box. These are good ones for judging values. So just get your pencil out and see the value of something on a page and try to copy that value as smoothly as you can. And do that in a pencil. That's a good one. Copying it over. Doing gradations. And that's a value accuracy thing. Otherwise, if you want to judge distances, this is a good one that you can do in person. And just on your own, just grab a piece of paper. You make 2 dots, then you make a dot where you think the midpoint is. Then you measure it. And you just use a piece of paper or a ruler or whatever. And you just measure to see if you were accurate. And you just fill up a whole page with that. You just make 2 dots, judge the middle. Make 2 dots, judge the middle. And that sounds simple, but what you're doing is you're really putting your eyes and your mind through the paces of learning to accurately judge distances. And that is key to accurate drawing. And so that's a good one. But after a little bit, what you want to do, of course, is change up the angles. So this would be like triangle to triangle and square to square. You don't want to just go up and down. Judge them left, right, up, down, sideways, all of that. That's more like value judgment. These sorts of things can be really good. So find a photo of like a cast drawing, then redraw that in, I would particularly say pencil, all right, because we don't want to do sample color sampling digitally. And then you draw that and match those values as closely as possible. You're basically trying to make a photocopy of that. And you'll need a range of pencils in order to get light enough and dark enough. But that's a really good one for accuracy as far as values, but a little bit for as far as drawing as well, because you've got to place them in there correctly. Got more stuff on that line. Let's see. Yeah, so I just made this. This is a good one for learning to think in terms of drawing ahead. What you would do is make a box like this. Then you would draw this. Use your pen to draw the designs on the left in the right boxes, but the page must remain with the text at the top. See, you would say, oh, I can't draw a house upside down. It's not a house. It's just black lines. It's just black angles. It's just curves. It's all just a series of light and dark patterns and colored patterns. So you would do this in pen, and you would draw it over here. So obviously no erasing. What this means that you have to think about both where you're starting and where you're ending before you start the line. You've got to start the line here knowing that it needs to end there. So I start here and I end here. This one starts here and it ends here and it comes out this far. That is another really good one for accuracy. All right, so anyway, that's some different exercises there. So go ahead and close that. And then, yeah, we need to pull this one. So Esri's portfolio was the first one up. Esri HG from Rockford, United States of America. And let's flip through some of the images. You guys know that I like to flip through first, kind of get an idea of the overall portfolio and try to find any particular strengths and weaknesses that go across multiple images, not just single images. A little Wally, very nice. Still test for Galaxy Note 10 and Sketchbook app. Man, I don't do much sketching on phones or tablets, but some of you guys do some impressive stuff with them. Next thing I splurge on, if I do end up doing it, I like to get a Cintiq or something similar. The drawing screen, nice and large. This is a nice study. Okay, we got several things going on here. Legend of Ganon, reimagining the world of Hyrule. Decades have passed since Link and Zelda failed to defeat Ganon in their use. Yeah, okay, so that was one based on a previous art challenge that we did. Okay, Dark Ganon. He's spiritual advisor. In a demon world. It gives me like a John Constantine sort of thing going on there. Okay, Esri. Well, you have a whole variety of different stuff. I like seeing that. I like seeing a mixture of, characters and fantasy and science fiction. And you're not just doing like what some people do, which is like faces. And the whole portfolio is just faces. You're not afraid to step out and try different lighting setups, more complex things. But going forwards with your artwork, where do you go from here? I'm going to say you're doing a lot of very difficult lighting setups, especially with like the Ganon. No, is that a problem? Is that bad? No, not at all. You want to go for that? Go for that. But I'm going to encourage you to make sure that your studies and your artwork is being balanced with at least half of it based on life. All right, make sure that you are doing sketches from life. Make sure that you're doing paintings from observation. Like if you do a still life like this, don't let it just be you copying a photo. Like actually have something sitting there and look at that. Be doing portrait sketches from photos maybe, because you can't always get somebody to be sitting there for you. And I think that that's really what's needed, because what I see a bit in this, which I see in a lot of other portfolios, is that people are doing like 90% of their stuff without good references, and they're just doing it from imagination, and they're not getting based in the what things really look like. They're not based in reality. They're going too much into the fantasy. So I'm going to suggest make sure you're doing that, and do some studies. Do some, I want to say repaintings isn't right. I'm going to encourage you that you're probably in a good place to go through some courses. It would probably be really helpful for you, because you've got enough skill that you're not starting at the beginning, so you will be able to get more from some sort of course. So I think that that's probably a really good call for you at this stage. There isn't just one single thing that you're doing. It's more about, we just need to advance your overall understanding of lighting, your overall understanding of telling forms, and handling detail. So it's not just one thing. It's just, you just need to keep putting in the time. You're putting in a lot of time. You've come a long way. So just keep putting in the time. Be getting as much feedback as you can. I only have a minute or here to try to give you some feedback, but that's about what I can say. Yeah, just keep pushing forwards. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything particular. Yeah, be practicing drawing from life. Do some classes. Just make sure that you're grounded in reality, because that will always be able to transition to your images and help inform how to do those correctly, or do them better. Yeah. Okay. Even Amundsen does all his work on a small iPad now with Procreate. Oh, I did not know that. Yeah, well, Amundsen is making it work. Okay. What do you guys like to see? You know what? I'm going to toss it out there. Do you guys like to see feedback or in portfolios kind of like that? Or are you really in for like the paint overs? I know some people, like, that's what they really love. So let me know what you guys would like to see kind of going forwards. All right, we need to find another portfolio. Okay. And pulling up my list here to see who we have. Number 18. Nope, we've already done that one. So somebody else. Okay. Seka, do I reviews anyone's art? Yes, anybody that has already submitted their portfolio. I made a call for portfolio submissions a while back on the group. I'll probably put out another one pretty soon because we're going through. We've already marked off half a dozen of them. Okay, that looks like a good link. Hobbit says paintovers feel like they help the community more than just giving feedback to the person and suggesting what to do. Both are obviously good. Okay, well, maybe we'll do a quick little feedback here. Then we will jump over to the next portfolio. And I will, you know what? OBS is hidden under all my menus somewhere. Okay. One thing I will say is and this is fairly common, you're punching the darks really dark in this scene. And yeah, she would be silhouetted, but it's going to be more like what you actually have down here. These are actually closer. And then you're using white in order to paint with light. And that's rarely the right call because white light is kind of unusual. And the white is also going to just really desaturate things. That's not how things light. So I would suggest doing some studies from film stills. Get some film stills of movies with good cinematography and do little studies of them that they don't need to be real long. They can be 20 minutes. There's no detail in them. You're just doing block so that you get a better understanding of how the values work, how light works on a scene, so that you're not blowing things out one way or the other, being a photography term. Same thing kind of with these guys is this is a very complex lighting setups. So make sure that you're getting some references from even other artwork where it is like a glowing angel or, dark mystic light from some fog, and see how they handled it. Go out to ArtStation and Google around until you find maybe 3 of each to give you some ideas of how to handle that and get a lot out of it. But for this one, that one's a little complex to do. That's who we'll look at next. Let's grab Gannon here. I updated Photoshop and it moved all of my stuff around. So I'm having to stop and look where my menus are now and haven't reset them the way that I like them. And I used to have the brush over here. I keep reaching to that spot for my brush. So here, it's a cool scene. I like him kind of dark. Okay, that works. And he's got like this magic thing going on. Okay, cool. But we're losing a lot. We're losing a lot in all the shadowy stuff because it's all kind of the same tone, and there's just not much difference in all of that. Okay, no, I need that out of the way so I can see the chat. Okay, cool. Smiley face is so huge and creepy in the chat. Well, okay. This scene is trying to be realistic. So I'm going to give it feedback going that direction. Okay, if they were trying to do it really stylized, it wouldn't be quite the same feedback. But it looks like they're trying to do it pretty realistic. Another thing is I'm a big proponent of trying to make use of the light sources that are denoted in the scene. So instead of just inventing kind of random light, we have a very distinct light source in the scene, being this blue ball. And we also have the kind of the ambient purplish light behind him. Can we find some references? And that would be one of the first things that I do. So yeah, let's step through that. Let's step through that for a second. Let's step through. Let me jump back here to a certain folder. And okay. So I have a variety of different folders out here with, different topics of things that I save, some based on what games, some based on particular artists, some environments, some character designs, that sort of thing. What I'm interested in right now is lighting and colors. That is the biggest issue going on with this scene, is the lighting and colors. I probably won't find one that has this exact color scheme, but I can probably find one that has the right or similar lighting or general tone. And that's what I want to see. And this is, this is what I would do in order to try and improve this. Is, okay, first thing, I can base it off of my sheer guesswork, or I could go out here and look for something. And this is what I think you should do, is go out and look at somebody else's stuff. So this is kind of interesting. It's really dark, but you still have the light and shadow pattern going on. That's kind of cool. Not quite it, though. There were a couple of images I'm thinking of. I don't see them here. Oh, this one's fairly close. This is Brad Rigney's scene. Obviously, it's a very dark scene. He's some sort of necromancer or whatever. But we're looking at the lighting and whatnot. And see how he stands out really nicely from the background, because the background is actually a bit lighter than him. And we're not pushing to pure black. And that's one of the reasons that this is getting a bit lost, is that the background is so dark. And he actually doesn't pop out that well. So we could consider actually lightening up the background and letting him stand out because he's darker, or we need to go the other way where we intensify the light on him and let all the background get darker. Because right now he's not really dark enough or light enough to pop out. Okay, what else could we see that we might be able to learn a little bit? This is kind of interesting. Taking it like that, very atmospheric. You could go that direction as well, right? We could go very atmospheric with it. And in which case the fog is just all around him. You just have this glowing source with some, maybe a little backlit from some sort of, light behind him. That would work. Or we could introduce another light source. Now this sort of thing, that's pretty cool. With the side light coming over, and you have the light and dark side, because that's where the forms are really breaking down here. Because we don't have enough going around it. Talking about Evan Amundsen and him doing on his iPad, I guess. That's one of his pieces. Came across that just yesterday or so. Really love that. Beautiful, beautiful piece. Great little lighting on it. A little tree beard rendition. I like that rendition. That's a good one. So let's step through some ideas. Where is the one I want? Oh, it has smoothing on. That's why. So, one thought would be to make more use of this blue light. Actually want to tone it down just a little bit. Then I want to use that light and let that light fall on more of the scene and help it tell the forms going on here. I have to go faster. Here we go. Same sort of thing going on down here. I'm getting a real delay with trying to do the stream and get the computer to go that fast. Kind of going that direction. And then if you wanted that to go into shadow, that's fine, but we want to kick up the values back there. This would not be, I'm not going to be able to do like a 5-minute thing to address this, because we're talking about like changing all of the background, changing the major lighting setup here, and then you probably want some sort of secondary light that is going to help pull out the forms on the other side, because all of this stuff towards the light source here needs to be a lot brighter, a lot bluer. We want to play up that blue light right there. And things in the metal are going to get really bright, just because that's the way, you know, metal works. You're going to have those practically white highlights. Some of that white here is going to be bright as well. And, you know, over here you're going to have some of that too. And then most of this background will need to be lightened up, although you might actually darken it around that sphere so it looks like it glows a little brighter. And then if you brighten it around these dark silhouetted shapes, it will pop out a bit more. And you could have some sort of other light source back there. Say that it's kind of a dull red. No, maybe. Yeah, we'll go with it. Just don't have time to mess with it. And so, like on the metal, it'll be easier to make that feel like metal if it's got some other color that it also gets to reflect over there. And maybe that side of the face is catching some of the red light. And some of it that's catching more direct light could have a little pops of the warm color. But because fabric isn't as reflective, so it's not really going to have pops of color. It's just going to have kind of a general tone coming down. So we're trying to bring out more of the 3D forms, give it a bit more of a realistic lighting setup, and thinking about how the light falls over those different volumes. I'm still thinking that that background is probably too dark. Oh, that's his cloak. And then you can let it get darker as it goes up, make it a little ominous that way. And then you can even have like the haze around this would be bluish because it's being lit by that. But then you can establish the idea that there's some other light source back there, making it kind of warm in tone. And then somewhere there in the middle, it starts to transition, right? It becomes a bit more violet as it comes across over there. And then instead of just jumping to white with the magic stuff, we could go to more of a blue. Because the white, of course, doesn't have any color. And we're wanting to make sure that we're not just dropping out into nothing color. So we can add more blues in that, and you can add some pops of white inside of that blue. And be going along that way. Will there be a Discord group at some point? Yeah, there was, but I basically was never out there, and I forgot to keep mentioning it. And we had a couple of people out there that got out there and just made a ruckus, and I didn't have moderators set. And we might be able to get it going again now if there's some people, some of my standard people that want to be moderators and would be using it. I would happy to get that up and going again. We could do that. I'm just probably not going to use it a lot myself, so it would be mainly for you guys, and I'm happy to facilitate it in that way. Okay, well, that's about what we can do time-wise on him. Hopefully that makes sense and kind of gives you a little bit of the idea of where that can be taken and how to address some of those issues. What is your schedule for streams? My primary streams are on Friday evenings or Friday afternoons. It varies a little bit depending on the hour with what's going on in my day at that time, but usually between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on Friday. I announce it out in the Facebook group. I'd like to change it a little bit because I do have a lot of the European viewers that need it earlier in the day. Then I kind of swap. And then I go to a later one that works a little bit better for the American audience since they're not actually off work at 4 p.m. So, we bounce between there. But I'm also going to be starting up the Twitch streams again. I'm looking forward to doing that. And that won't really be me going over your artwork, giving you feedback. It'll be more like me practicing. And we, let's see, the last live stream, we did like a paint along, draw along sort of thing where we're learning how to draw things from imagination and drawing without reference, that sort of stuff. And I will probably be continuing that on Twitch, as well as just some personal pieces that I want to do. And I don't have a schedule for that yet, so, stay tuned on that. Yeah. Okay, next portfolio we're going to be taking a look at is over here is Ivan Alvarez. Right. Ivan is from Mexico City. Character artist. Makes sense, as these are all characters. Okay. How many do we have here? Quite a few. Oh, check out the rendition of Voldy. He's looking all menacing. Oh, I like that rendition. I think that really kicks off the evilness that wasn't. I never really felt it from. I mean, Ralph Fiennes did a pretty good job in the movies, but I didn't think they pushed his look quite far enough. They did the whole nose replacement thing, but he was even supposed to have the snake eyes, and they skipped on that. Mikwai, if I'm saying that right. Portfolio reviews are free-ish, and that the portfolio reviews that I do part of the stream like this, they are free, but it's a lottery system. So maybe you get picked, maybe you don't. That's kind of the trade-off. If you want an absolute portfolio review and you want paintovers and feedback from me, that's where you do a consult, and you can schedule a personal one-on-one hour with me. And no, you don't have to be a patron either way. Okay, so you have a variety of different looks you're going for here. And you're doing some 3D stuff as well. It almost looks like it's kind of like the Witcher version of Hellboy. He's a pretty good looking guy there. He's a little less of the cartooniness to him. Interesting rendition. Okay, let's jump through stylized portrait, playing around with different styles. That can be fun. Sci-fi girl. Okay. Made for part of a Skillshare class. .3D model, Lilith. Okay. Yeah, I'm not as keen on reviewing 3D stuff. I can talk about some of the designs and stuff, but I wouldn't really be able to tell you much about how to implement those changes. So let's take a look at some of these. I don't know, it keeps jumping backwards, 2 of them when I hit back. Study. Ah, Mr. Stan. R.I.P. Oh, we do have some creatures here. Okay, so what can we do with Ivan's stuff here? We have several things going on in that you're kind of going different directions, and I'm not sure which way you're going. It's like, I don't know if you're trying to be realistic or you're trying to be stylized. I feel like you've probably been doing a lot of stylized stuff over the years that you've got used to doing it that way, but you look like you're trying to do some things more realistic as well. And some of them are a little odd with the pairing of the two. I noticed that you do a lot of the faces that are just straight on. And almost anything that isn't based on a photo, like portrait study, or a 3D model, kind of everybody else is straight on. Again, a portrait study, but that's the 3/4 one. Jill Valentine, fan art. That one at least has a little angle to it. I mean, it's basically straight on, but she's just tilted her head. I'm gonna suggest making sure that you're spending time doing some sketches. Like you can go out there and do the time sketches from there's different websites that just have portraits. Now, I'm not going to tell you, okay, go practice landscapes. I don't think that that's what you're doing. I think you're specializing in portraits. So in this case, you need to be able to do portraits like better than 95% of the people if you're going to specialize in portraits. I do suggest being able to back up and do some more from the full body, like Vi from League of Legends. But do practice some more full body, not necessarily doing entire scenes and backgrounds and all that, but it's going to be more beneficial. Make sure that you're doing plenty of drawings from life. Do 5-minute portrait sketches, 10-minute portrait sketches, and try to get the anatomy down really well. Learn how to work with the tones and stuff. I think that you can push something to be really beautiful and realistic and also painterly at the same time. One of my favorite pieces as far as portraits go here is this one right here. I'm afraid I don't know the name. It just got saved as The Night. Like this. It's not a photo. It's not trying to be a photo. It is beautiful and realistic, and it captures you, and you connect with this person, but it is also very painterly. So that is possible. And you can go on, this side too. Also, not overly detailed, but there's a soul there. And you don't even have to have color. You could do something like this. And I think that this is kind of what you're missing. I think you're getting a little formulaic about how you're going about drawing the face, and you're just drawing that front on face every single time, and you're drawing the lines. So what I want to suggest for you is to start doing portraits, but working in tone rather than line. Don't use line, only use tones. Make your mind start thinking in different way. You start building it in different way. Like that. I mean, that's kind of a different way to do it there, right? Here. I mean, do you see the lines on the nose and the mouth? No, because they're not there, right? He's using tones of color against each other. These are some really good exercises to do it that way. And if you are going to do more realistic, like this is a lovely. Let me make it bigger. This is a lovely piece. I was looking at this one just the other day with one of the consults. He's not drawing every individual hair. He's not drawing the threads in the jacket. He didn't even bring the color all the way down. And this is a really good example of putting detail where it needs to be. It's accurate colors. It's accurate way that the skin works. So going forwards, I would say do practices from time. Just do it in pencil, and then try to do some realistic ones and try to get a bit more of the skin tone and try to make that feel a bit more real. That doesn't necessarily mean detail. Somebody did Taylor, but it was really well handled. You can look at that. Look at the soft tones. Look how subtle some of these changes of value and color are. Look how subtle that they've done some of the hair and the different edges. So many soft edges. And the way that the eye isn't outlined. There isn't a line around the curve over the eye, but you can sense the volume of the eye with the way that it's shaded. Something like that. This was the original list to post your portfolio for review. Should we focus on drawing? Should we focus on drawing the whole picture first, or drawing the eyes or lips first? If you want to put in some guidelines, like if you want to be drawing your portrait, let's just clear some area for a second. If you want to just establish, okay, it's kind of going to be, that area of my screen. Okay, cool, that's fine. Or what you can do is just grab, I don't need black, just give me some gray. You can just work in tone, right? So you're just doing this. And you're just going, okay, that's the head. And then I'm going to just say that, that's going to be the hair area. And then you start working into the blocks, right? And the eyes are going to be about halfway, right? And I'm doing the eye area. And then I'm doing the nose shadow. And then the top of the nose is slightly darker. I'm going to just kind of pull that up there. And then we've got kind of the shadow underneath where the whole face is kind of rounding away a little bit. And then we have the mouth area. Kind of like that. And we have some shadow down here. And I'm just making this up. This should be based on some sort of photo, so that you have something to go on besides just making it up, right? And then once you have a kind of a block in with it, then you can move on to doing a bit more of the kind of working in tones. Like I'm thinking of the eye itself and the values in the eye bleeding into the shadow shapes, bleeding into the eyebrow. So it's all just tones. It's not drawing a line for this and a line for that. It's making tonal block-ins for it. And if I was going to be doing this properly, I would have a photo here. And it is hard to do on delay, but we're giving it a shot. Maybe we've got some. Where's my angled brush? Oh, where is he? That's who I'm looking for. Ah, here we go. Yeah. You know, you go in more of that line. You're just thinking about the tones and the blocks of value. You're not thinking about the lines. I'm at no point did I really start using lines to do anything. And this is, I mean, let's throw away because I'm not even looking at anything to do it properly. But do some studies from photos more along that line. And then if you want to get kind of what they have here, then you can use a little more variety of brushes, and then you can come back in here with like a, nope, that, I guess I need to reset my, my key binding after I updated. But you can come in here and use like the soften in order to give a bit more of that, where everything doesn't have the same edge, and you're kind of letting the jaw lines and eyes and stuff kind of blur together, and you can fix the proportions because the nose is too long and blah. Yeah. Soften the lips a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so that is kind of bugging me. Now we're just going to do it. Okay, close enough. There. Now I'm just having fun with it. Yeah. Okay, anyway, more of that sort of thing. You would probably get better results ultimately. And also be thinking about where did that go? Yeah, like one of the things that you're running into with some of these is that it's just feeling very flat. There isn't any kind of realistic lighting going on. It's just real over the top. Man, I wish you'd went with some of these more 3D view ones. But if you're going to do this, let it be just a little more asymmetrical, probably. You can give her, a bit more tilt of the shoulder with the catwalk of the S curve, with the shoulder down and the hip up, where it feels like she's really walking. Right now, her hips are just about even, her shoulders are about even, and there's no sense of motion to it. It looks like she's posing. And also, the arms could be a little bit different. Seems like when you just naturally start kind of sketching, you get that, like this feels a little bit more natural, like the arms aren't be perfect one side or the other. And then try to develop the form of it. And I can tell that that's kind of hard for you to think of because you're not doing it. You're not trying to develop the form, but think about the volume, the roundness of things and generate that. Yeah, some of this is kind of a stylistic thing, where I don't know how realistic you're trying to be or how stylized you're going to be, so it makes it a little difficult to try to give you accurate feedback with it. But let's play with this for just a minute. I'll just say that this is where it is. I have no idea who this is or what they're supposed to look like, but we'll just do a rendition of it. It's obviously under some sort of soft light. We're thinking this could be a scene where she's outdoors under a very foggy day, an overcast day where it's very diffused light. So we don't want to change that. We don't suddenly want to give it this bright light and high contrast, that sort of thing. That's not what we want at all. What we do want to do is try to make it feel a bit more human, a bit more life in it. Let's go ahead and pull up that other image here. They do some things really well in this one. See if we can learn some things about this and make that applicable over here. I'll move her over. If you were like me and you've used Photoshop for years and didn't realize that this button exists, auto select, if you have your selector tool, the move tool, you can hit auto select, and then whatever layer you click on, you will automatically be able to grab that layer. I didn't know that forever, and I kept like right clicking to pick which layer I wanted. That's the long way. Which other ones? Nope, not him. See, there's a nice portrait. Mr. Cumberbatch is Doctor Strange. You also notice how he didn't rework the hair, overwork the hair. He put just enough in there, just enough texture to make it feel like got some skin going on there. I do cover skin in rendering skin in the materials course, so check that out when it comes out. And that's one of those like hyper realistic, yet also slightly stylized. Really good rendition. Okay, so over here, what I'd be thinking is, can we make the eyes feel more more glossy because they feel just kind of like skin. They don't feel like they have a gloss. And one of the reasons is they don't have a proper highlight. And maybe we could just take artistic interpretation, right? So here we have a series of highlights. And we also have some little highlights on the nose. This makes the skin feel like it has some moisture to it, that's not dried out. Also look for highlights in the corner of the eye. I need to put my layer on top of that so you can see it. In the corner of the eye down there. He has a little bit on the nose. No, you didn't stick my layer there. Thank you. We also want to look for maybe multiple highlights. We want to look for some soft tones, right? Remember, the features are not things sitting on the face. They are part of the face. So I'm going to start by actually using my smudge tool. Set it low, I have it on all samples, and I want to soften this out around the nose. Generally speaking, you don't want to emphasize the lines around the nose, especially on a lady. And the same thing with the, what are they called? The nasal folds around here. You didn't over push them, but I would probably even pull them back a little bit more than that. And this is obviously a young lady. So you're not trying to intensify her age by bringing that out. So we want to just ease back on some of those. Does this one have the brushes? Yeah, my brush windows and stuff have all moved. Okay, here we go. I want just a little variance to this. I'll put 4% across. Okay. Okay, so that's good. It keeps jumping to that one instead. Like on this one, I'm kind of noticing that it's a little bit tighter around the bottom middle, a little bit softer on the other places. So I'm going to let that vary a little bit. This top part feels like it's more like a mascara line. I don't feel like it has a proper turn to the skin. So I want to particularly soften out the top part of it to make it feel like it's folding. We'll move up and do some detail on it. But for right here, same thing with the hair. I just want to soften this out a little bit. What else? The lips edges usually can be softer than you think, so they feel like they're part of the skin and not just something on the skin. And same thing, I'm trying to move away from the lines a little bit. We're just pushing this to a slightly more realistic direction. Okay. Small changes there. Now let's start with the eyes, since those are kind of the key point, right? The whites of the eyes feel particularly warm, so we want to just cool them off. I'm going to grab some of the cooler tone there in the background. Cool them off a little bit. Also want to soften the edge some. Irises usually have a slightly softer edge and maybe even a little bit of brighter color right along that edge. If you want to give her a really kind of a doe eye look, you make the irises just a little bit larger than normal. Normally speaking, if you get the distance from here to here and you divide it in half, then the totally the iris takes up that much room. It takes up 1/2. So essentially, of what is visible of the eye when it's striking forward, the two whites on the side equal together the width of the iris. But on babies, it is not that way. On babies, like, actually, let's draw it out. Where's my history? History here? Yep. Oh, just back up. Good. On a human, it's half. So it's like this part plus this part equals that part. But on a baby, it's more like most of it is iris, and you have a lot less white visible. And depending how much highlights you put around there is kind of how moist the eye is. You can almost give the impression that they've been crying or about to cry, depending on how many highlights and little gleams you put in there. We also want to put in a little more color. I don't know. I'm going to put in just a little bit here. I'm going to get an overlay layer and grab some violet. Generally have slightly violet tones around the eye. I just need that lower opacity. I just want right about there. The blood vessels being near the eye, the surface of the eye, and so much around the eye, give it a slightly violet tone in many cases, and then it shifts more to the pinks towards the nose. I need to get something a little deeper than that though. In the cheeks, you have quite a bit there in the cheeks. Then the whites of the eyes themselves can be treated a little bit more like spheres, because obviously they are, which means that they're going to lighten a little bit more there on the top, because that's generally speaking where the light's coming from. And we can use our bristle. Where's he now up here? Just going to indicate some eyelashes. I mean, you're not drawing individual eyelashes, you're kind of drawing the groups of eyelashes. Same thing on the bottom. And you're probably going to get a bit more of the red there in that corner if you want to punch it up some. And we can drop our opacity down a little bit. And if you want to do some of the smaller lines, little stuff in there, you can do that. Oh, that's making her look too old. Back up a little bit. But we do want to develop these forms up here. Now, they've handled it pretty well on theirs, but up here, it's going to flatten off a little bit, generally speaking, towards the top. But we want that to round. We want there to be that dark part, then it rounds here. But where it does round, it's probably going to be slightly warmer. And we want to bring in some of that translucency of the skin. Because that is a key thing to remember, is that skin is translucent. That's just getting, I think, a little dark right there. I'm going to just punch that up. Skin will retain some of the light that comes into it, giving it a slight glow. Remember, this is curving down, right? So we're going to put some shadow over here, and then we're going to have more of that mid-tone as this curves out. And we could even have some of the warmth here, because we're not really having eyelashes right there. The eyelashes don't form right there. So what we're just seeing is the thickness of the skin, and that is skin that is going to be a little translucent. So we're going to get some warmth there. And that's also going to cast a little cast shadow on the white of the eye there. May even get a bit more of the warmth. It's pretty common to get a nice pop of warmth right there in the eyelid. Let's set my opacity down a little bit. Okay, that's much too much. Back me off there a little bit. Very fleshy tone right around there. Kind of see that difference. So this is what we're doing with it, right? And black. Let's make that. Oh. Not quite what I meant to do. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. Down here at the nose. The nose you really want to keep pretty understated. Just pray down. I know you can get that little light right there, but we want to play that down a little bit. Otherwise, it starts breaking up the value scheme. We do have an actual overlapping, a little bit harder edge there, so we want to reinforce that. Got lost a little bit when we were fuzzing it. I'm just trying to make up some of those shadows. I'm not sure what's going on there in a realistic way. This is somewhere we can try to develop a little bit more form by letting those curves follow the curvature of the lips. You can see that over there on theirs. We don't really want to play up these shadows over the... No, I'm used to that, jumping over to this one. There we go. Sometimes it's more about adding like a little bit more light there rather than adding a dark line. Cooling the teeth off just a little bit more in there. So anyway, gives you some ideas. That's way too much time we really need to spend. It's a lot of little changes in order to try to bring out some of the translucency of the skin, some of the warmth of the skin. Even in a fairly flat lighting like this, you can help to develop some of the forms, try to bring out the moisture in the skin, and just keep things from being really static, really straightforward. Okay. That's good there. Am I missing any questions? Let me take a look to see. Looks like you guys are mainly talking with each other. That's cool. Let's... okay. Nope. All right, let's take a look at who else we have. We'll probably do one more portfolio. Let's see, we did this one. Go ahead and mark that so I remember who that is. Okay, let me run another random number to see who we get this time. Down here. Well, it's acting like it's trying to load, but still not up yet. We'll give it a second. How much is a 101 critique session? For the hour, it is 110. I did have half hours available for a while, but no one ever did the half hour. Well, I think maybe one person did. I think I had one person to do the half hour. So I only have the hours open up right now. If you need the half hour instead, which is about half that price, then let me know and I could probably open one up for you. Okay. Can we jump back over here? Okay, cool. So this is Fulvio over in Brazil, Osasco, Brazil, and is a concept art student. Okay. All right, well, let's jump through here. Kimono, yeah. Helmet, okay. Vraska. Vraska is the snake lady planeswalker from Magic the Gathering. I've illustrated her a couple of times. The one really good one that I did has not been released. I don't know if it ever will be. I'd love to show it to you. Bird study. Good. Portrait study. Right. Can you... Okay, a really good handle of the values. Okay. Those studies, I mean, they can be good if they're not exact copies, right? If you're giving it a little something, then it's usually more useful. Okay, there's some good stuff going on there. Color study, portrait study, portrait study, Captain Marvel. Skin study. Okay, so Fulvio, comments. All right, some of the things that I see consistent across your work is that you have good skills in reproducing things if you can see them. But I also think that you're not, no, I'm not thinking, I know that you're not as skilled in thinking in 3D. You are not very conscious of the forms because as soon as you're trying to do something that doesn't have a really direct reference, that you're quickly losing the idea of how the forms are lit and how to create a scene. So I'm going to kind of challenge you on the way that you're doing the studies. Don't do exact copies. That's good for a little bit, for certain, you can learn certain things by doing that. But ultimately, I think it's going to start holding you back because you're not learning how to think of it and apply that knowledge to something else. So if you do, if you have a photo like this, then take that lighting in that skin tone and apply it to a new character that's a man with a different expression. All right? That way that it makes your mind have to understand what's going on and not just copy it. So get the portrait study, but apply it to something new. This lady, like change the gender, change the pose, change the angle, like do this lady, have this reference of this lady and do her again where she's has her head down and slightly off to the side. All right? Because that is going to force you to think about how those things work on a volume. And you're not thinking in terms of volumes. And that's really what's going to hold you back. Because right now, your pieces all have this kind of flat quality to them. And it's because you're not really understanding the volume. You're not thinking about how things are rounding around. And they all have this sort of just almost cut out appearance. The way that you handle edges shows that you're not thinking that this edge goes anywhere. It's just this flat edge. Everything has this super hard, super defined edge unless it gets to the skin, and then the skin is above and beyond smooth. It's like too perfect smooth. That's another thing that I don't want to say that it's wrong, but I don't think in the long run it's going to do you any favors, because it's like everything is fuzzy. Everything has the exact same level of fuzzy. And it's all super soft brush with hard edge. Soft brush with hard edge. And we just kind of see that over and over. It's like everything looks super airbrushed. What I'm going to suggest to you is start working in terms of using brush strokes rather than using soft spray paint to make it perfect. No. Or even get out of digital art for a little bit, pick up an actual brush with some oil paints on it, and do some still life paintings. That would probably do better for you than about anything else. You need to be able to think in terms of planes rather than in terms of just light and dark patterns. So do some practicing like we're looking at earlier with some of the exercises. Do some practicing of drawing a simple object and turning it without any reference. Just draw, get a book, and then turn that book and draw it, and then turn that book and draw it, and then turn that book and draw it, and then open the book a little bit and draw it, and open the book and draw it, and then turn the book that's slightly open and draw it. And this is going to start making you think in terms of volumes, or get something like. One of your portrait models and say, okay, I'm going to use this character with this expression, but I'm going to change the lighting. And so you go find another photo of someone else under a different lighting, and you apply the lighting from this photo to the person of that photo. Now you have to start thinking about, okay, where are the planes on this character? If I have a side light over here, where is the light hitting? And I need to be able to adapt the knowledge from this piece over to this piece. These things are all going to help break you out of the kind of the copyist mentality and build a deeper understanding. This doesn't really work so much for the paint over. Just kind of going forwards, that's a major thing. Because even like on this, it's just the absolutely straightforward with just kind of, textural stuff going on. I don't know three-dimensionally what this is doing. I don't know if that's supposed to be going back or up or flat or what. Again, it's just kind of a shape. And that's fine in order to develop an idea, but from there, do a three-quarter version of it. And you're trying to do that kind of here, but that's also like the least developed thing. I think you kind of hit this point and are like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And then you just move on to doing another portrait. I could probably bet you on that's what's going on. You hit that wall where you don't understand. You realize that you don't understand the volumes. You don't understand how to work the foreshortening and that sort of stuff, and then you fall back on, but I can draw portraits well, I'm going to go back and do that. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. So let's hold off on doing more portrait copies and do more studies from life. Let's start using none of the super soft brushes and start thinking in terms of planes. It would probably benefit you if you started working with somebody like this guy. This brush is really nice. It's a rounded square right there. How do you make one? You go like this. You go new document. You could set this at maybe 200 by 200. Say create. Press D in order to get the default black and white. And then I can just grab your normal brush, set it down to like 50% hardness. I know, thank you. Nope. I'm used to clicking there for my brush, hang on. Nope, too big. Just kind of do a vertical like that. little softer on the edges. And it's not perfect. You know, it's not perfectly uniform. Who cares? Whatever. It'll bring a little texture into it. Okay, then you would say edit. Define, oh no, I said define pattern. I need to say edit. Define brush preset. Say okay. And then I can go back over here to whatever my page is over here. And then I can grab that one. And then I can open up my brush menu right here, and I can adjust some things. I want transfer, so I want pressure sensitivity to the opacity, and then maybe I want a little size change. Size is based on pin pressure. The minimum diameter is about 70%. I don't want it to get real little, and it's 100% based. Oh no, not jitter. There we go. And then scattering, spacing is only okay. Yep, good. Anywhere there or smaller. I might put on a little color dynamics, 3-4% across there, just so it has a little bit. And with the shape dynamics, angle jitter, I want it to direction. So if I go this way, it follows me. That flat edge is always flat to the angle that I'm going. And this would probably be a much better tool for you to use right now, because you'll have to start thinking in terms of painting with planes. Something else that could be beneficial to helping think in terms of volumes and planes, go out and take a class on sculpting a head, sculpting a bust, right? Or just go buy some clay, buy some modeling clay, and go through a YouTube video or online course on sculpting a portrait. And then that what it will do is literally make you have to cut those planes off of the clay, and you'll really start to remember where those planes are. I did take one sculpting class for doing portraits, and I found that very useful, and for a long time I could remember the planes really well. It'd probably be good for me to do it again. And it's just downright enjoyable too. So that's a good option as well. See here, I'm just kind of coming back to this one. Trying to develop the planes on that face a little bit. It's like all of this is kind of receiving the same amount of light. I'm trying to get you back up to the eye some. So I'm getting the curvature of the face and kind of the volume of the spherical, cylindrical nature of the head. You know, to try to make that have a bit more volume. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Thank you, as usual, for doing this for free. I'm glad to be able to live here again. Due to the COVID pandemic here in Chile. I'm glad to be able to... Oh, to be here live again. Okay. I was like, you're living again? Man, George, good to have you on the stream. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, I don't think I've seen a post by George in a while. Wonder if he's doing okay down there. So... glad to hear that you're able to join in and stay healthy, man. I'm not even going to try that name. I have no idea how to pronounce it. You say, Swatches, hey Clint, do you think that specializing in certain things like creatures or weapon design or genre-wise, doing only sci-fi or fantasy, for example, is a viable option for a concept artist? To a degree. Everybody has to be... a generalist, but specializing is absolutely an option in some cases. But you better be darn good at whatever that is. You can't be average at that particular thing, or you're not going to be really useful to anybody. So I think of somebody immediately like Terrell Whitlatch, who is one of the foremost creature design concept artist. And if a movie needs a creature design, she's one of the go-to names. And I don't see her doing landscape designs. I don't see her doing vehicle designs. You see her doing creatures. And she knows creatures. She's studied the anatomy. She knows musculature of all the major types, avian and bovine and canine and human. She knows the skeletal structure. She knows where the tendons are. She knows how to draw all of these things from memory. She knows how to blend a hawk with a leopard. She knows it inside and out, and that's what you have to do if you're a specialist. So you can do it, but also make sure it's something that that there's enough need for. Maybe being like, I'm a specialist on drawing mugs. I don't know that you're going to stay busy, man. You might want to branch out. If you were, you could, Ian McKeag is another example. Sorry, this chair is so uncomfortable. It's just a cheap little hard metal chair. I can only sit in this so long and it starts getting uncomfortable. I think of Ian McKeag, who is, I would say, a specialist in character design. And you don't see him doing as many finished paintings. You don't really see him doing environments. He's primarily characters, but he does them really, really well. You could also think about it as being more like a forte, where that's not the only thing you do, but there is something that you are better at than others. I would say my forte is characters. I generally get asked to do characters. I probably do characters better than I do environments, or something on that line. But, or you can also say maybe lighting. I'm a little bit better at lighting than I am like my brush work. My brush work's kind of sad, but that's because I put more effort into learning lighting. I find lighting and colors and how to get emotion and stuff out of them more interesting, I guess, than getting better at my brush work. So I put more time into it. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. A kneaded eraser is also a cheap, tiny option. I guess you are talking to somebody else. I'm not sure what that refers to. Do you prefer to draw center out or the opposite? If you're talking to me, I prefer to draw focal point out. If it's a character, then I'm going to establish the general layout of where things are on the page so that things don't happen to get too large or too small or, that sort of thing. I want to make sure everything's where it should be. Then I'm going to start on the focal point, because if that works, then it's going to help carry the rest of the piece. If that doesn't work, it really doesn't matter how good the rest of the piece is. Let's see. Cherie Kitten says, Swatches, what makes a drawing, I almost say you probably meant to say realistic. Is there some defining factor? Most of the images I see when researching are highly detailed. Is that all it means? No, it's not. Details can help if it's something real close to the camera where you would see that kind of detail. But like, I would say this image over here of this portrait, that's realistic. Now, it's not realistic as in that's necessarily what it would look like in real life. The main things to make things look realistic, and I've gave this some thought, and I've thought about doing a class on, or like a course or something on realism, and what does it take? What are the major factors? Oftentimes, the major factors that you need to get is, let me get a, well, I could just type it, right? Yeah. Oh, well, that's new. Apparently in new Photoshop, if you make a box, it automatically fills it with the stand-in text. Okay. Okay. Values. And it's automatically going to jump me down a long ways. Yep, it has a 70-point jump between those. Okay, let's take that out. Colors. These aren't in any particular order, all right? Okay, so are things behaving correctly? Are things behaving the way they would in real life? If they are, then details can kind of come and go, and it doesn't matter that much. I've used the example before, example I was given as an art student, which is you can look at a portrait of a person, a photo of somebody that you know, and it can be little, and they can look real. Is it because you could see the details? Not at all. You can't even make out their irises or their pupils. It's just a dark eye, right? It's just a dark mass where the eye is. But you can recognize who it is, and you can recognize that it's a portrait, and you can recognize that it's real. It looks real, from the photo, because everything is behaving the way it ought to. It isn't getting too light or too dark. The values are behaving correctly. The colors are behaving correctly. The light is behaving correctly. When you start screwing with the inconsistencies of light, then it gets more noticeable. With light, you want to keep a couple of things consistent. You want direction. If the direction starts changing across the image, it breaks the sense of reality. Number two, you want to keep the intensity. This is something else that more inexperienced artists get wrong. Like one part will be really, really high contrast, but then the thing right next to it is like it's under a dull light source, and that light doesn't affect everything uniformly or consistently. So the intensity has to stay the same. The color has to stay the same. That's another one, which is the shift. Like it's a red light source up here. The lantern is red, but they're lit by a white balanced light source. Again, that's the sort of thing that's going to keep it from feeling realistic, because you, as a viewer, instinctually know that doesn't feel right. Something's off there. Another one with this would be I'll call it the focus. It's probably a better word for it. But where is the light focusing, right? Is it a big soft light that's hitting the whole body? Is it an overhead light from the sky that's hitting everything? Is it just a shaft of light coming down? Because that needs to be kept consistent as well. If you have it hitting this thing, then it needs to hit the thing underneath it. That's something else people get wrong. And it's these little breaks in reality that often keep things from feeling real. Proportions. If your drawing itself with the proportions don't reflect reality, that's going to kind of break the illusion as well. So things have to have, like the faces have to have proper proportions. Buildings have to be the right size to somebody to make them kind of feel real. And the materials, I would say materials make things feel more real, but not necessarily material details. And this sort of goes back to, does skin behave the way that skin behaves? If it's folding in a way that skin wouldn't fold, that's not going to feel real. If it is too glossy, it's going to feel artificial. It's going to feel plastic. It's going to feel fake. So you have to get the right behavior. Again, I think this is a good example. Like the skin doesn't have lots of little pores and details on it, but it's the right color. It's the right value. It's behaving and folding and blending in the right way. Same thing with the hair. The hair doesn't have every little individual strand. It's the right color. It's the right value. It's behaving correctly. And the hair and the skin and the background all are working together into a believable lighting scenario. And it's that consistency across each element that gives it an element of realism without necessarily being an exact photo. Long answer to actually a very interesting topic. So I appreciate the question. I'm curious. Michael says, I'm curious if you know the book Anatomy for Sculptors, since you bring up the sculpting and anatomy studies being helpful for other areas of art. Oh, offhand, I don't recall the title. That might be one I have. That might be one I've looked at. But it's been years since I did, so I don't recall the name of the book. Sorry. Shuri says, oh, okay, no, that's the one we just looked at. We had skipped Michael's earlier. Michael says, I asked because I'm wondering if a resource like that is worth getting. I don't know the book in question, but those books could be useful. Yeah, and this is something that I kind of talked about before, which is study some of the sister arts. So a painter and an artist would probably do well to study some sculpting. It would probably do well to study some photography and some cinematography. It might even do well to study special effect makeup in order to understand how skin tones works and kind of the anatomy of the face and how to build it. A lot of that knowledge will transfer over to what you're doing. And 3D modeling and getting into that side of it too can help inform how you go about your drawing as well. Little Wizzy says, I've noticed artworks where there's a brushstroke of more saturated color right before the subject goes around the background, like where an arm mixes with the background. Can you explain? Sure thing. And that is generally a good idea. So, say we're down here. And this is such a soft image to begin with. It can be for a couple of different reasons. We'll go through a couple of different reasons why that might be the case. So we just have a little blank spot here. Let's just grab some of this. And say that we have a little cylinder here. Now, if I just run the sides of this cylinder completely hard against that background, it can feel cut out. It can feel flat, and I don't really want that. What you want to do is try to give a sense of the volume and the three-dimensional quality of the object. And you can do that with the lighting, you can do that with shading, but you can also do that with edges. And you can play a little bit with that in order to try to convey it better. So we could pick like a warmer, nope, that's not warm enough. Let's just pick this and we'll modify it. There we go. We could pick somebody like this and do a slight mid-tone along that edge that's a little brighter. Probably need brighter. There we go. And what you're doing is giving the impression that this is actually rounding around, because a hard panel that's flat is going to have a completely hard edge. But this, we're trying to soften out just a little bit and make it feel like it has a little more rounding to it. It might also be because there's a little angular reflection going on, particularly with a round object, that can be the case. So running that along the edges. I do that in quite a bit of my work. There is somebody else's work that they do that too. Let me see if I can pull some of his work up. If I have that saved. I can't remember if I saved that or not. I don't remember which ones I've saved. Let's take a look. Yeah, these might not be high res enough to be able to. Yeah, it helps blend from one thing to another, and it keeps the edges from feeling too hard, too planar. I thought I had a particular one of Donato that showed it well, but apparently I must have just seen it online. I don't know where it is now. And another thing is, depending on the way that the light is hitting, like if the light is really coming down a little bit harder here, we'll see, we'll shade this, then, and there's some light behind her that's maybe a little brighter. Part of the light here behind her, I'll just take out some of that hair, fine, is actually going to be coming into that skin, and it can brighten it up because that light is going to come through to the skin. The skin is slightly translucent, and it can brighten up right along that edge. And you're seeing the skin glow right there. And it's a visual phenomenon, and it's also something that allows us as artists to accentuate in order to bring out a bit more of the pop of color to it. No. Cherie, well, you're welcome. I'm glad you found it helpful. Okay, we're running at 8:15. We're a bit over 2 hours here, and if I keep going, I'm gonna start slowing down too much. So I think that'll probably do it. We covered over several little paint overs, some good questions. We've got the new art challenge coming out soon. Oh, okay. So we had our other paint overs and a little example with that. We did that, guys, that paint over. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll put a post out tomorrow with the e-tickets. That'll be at swatchesart.com. That's on the Gumroad store. And there will be a limited number. That's why we do the e-tickets. Previously, I didn't have a limit on how many reviews we were doing. And once it got to like 40-ish, it was simply too many to do. So it's limited to about a dozen now. So, yeah. Okay, well, thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you have found it beneficial. If you have, please leave a like. Please leave a comment and just say thanks. Or I love toast. Or anything. Any comment really would be great. YouTube really loves it when you leave a comment. It says it's very meaningful to you, and it tries to, make that more prominent on the algorithm. So leave a comment and let me know what you liked about it, what you'd like to see in the future, if you enjoyed the paint over, whatever. So I will catch you. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I probably will not stream next Friday. It will probably be Thursday because I'm going to go. I'll probably be out of town Friday. But I'll try to have one next week. It might be a little bit earlier in the week. I'll put a note out there about that. Okay. Well, I will catch you guys later. Until then, keep drawing.